Hello, everyone. How are we all? I think I'm a little earlier today. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm usually on about 12:30, so a little bit early. So I hope you're all able to catch up with me. I'll wait to see your names flash up. And meanwhile, I will shuffle the wild unknown animal spirit card deck. It's been a bit hard to get motivated today, actually. I seem to have a lot to do, but boy, it's hard to get motivated sometimes. It's a little different to the old world where you spent your weekends going to see your grandchildren and your kids and your great-grandchildren. But at the moment, I'm doing most of that during the week, so it gives me a chance to have a bit of time to myself on the weekend, which is nice. Hey, Hayley, how you going? I was just looking because I know a lot of people watch online, but they don't comment, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that. But when nobody comments, I'm like, okay, it might just be that I've caught everybody too early today. Did the bell go off for you this morning? All right, I'm just doing a bit of a shuffle with this deck and we'll pull out a card or two. Hey, Tamara, how you going? Hey, Vane. Happy Friday to you here when it's Saturday here in Oz. So Saturday morning here in Australia, 11:50. But happy weekend all the same. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm fabulous, Susan. Fabulous. Doing a lot of stuff this morning. I haven't really sort of got up and I still keep looking at. Hey, Vicky, how you going? I keep looking at the mops and buckets and brooms and things, and I keep thinking, no, because I'm getting a little too obsessed with all of that. I'm not drawing cards for people, Pamela. I'm only just just a bit of a general read when I come on. So, hey, Gigi, how you going? I do the card pulls on my Facebook page. So we'll do one of those over the next couple of weeks, but we'll come around to that. Hey, Rachel, how you going? A few new names on this morning. That's really nice to see. So I'm going to pull a card from the Animal Spirit Guidebook, and we do have the frog. But as you know, the last couple of times Spirit's given me a couple. So I'm going to pull a couple out this morning so we can read them. I do have coming out the phoenix again and the lion. Ooh, from the frog. Wow. That's pretty strong energy right there. Okay, let's start with the frog. I had a bit of a giggle with somebody the other day because I said something about kissing too many frogs on my on the daily reads, and somebody had a bit of a cackle. The frog spirit. This is about clearing, cleansing, and healing. The frog and the water element are almost inseparable. The frog spends its first months of life entirely within this healing element and then emerges to rest on land. But no matter how earthly the frog becomes, its need for cleansing and rejuvenation is regular. Frogs tend to become overworked and undernourished. So it's vital that such sensitive creatures practice self-care. This card serves as a reminder that water helps us cleanse, forgive, and release. Time to dive in. Frogs aren't meant to carry a heavy load. So this is about clear energy and enthusiasm for life. So if you're feeling a little bit jaded, slow, stuck, then it's just sort of giving you a little reminder that when you're feeling like that, that is the time to get into that cleansing, to get into that energy of clearing your energy. Hello, Joanne. How you going? Kissing the frogs. Oh, thanks, Pamela. We'll have a Facebook Live shortly and do some card pulls. Rachel, it's lovely to see you on board. I don't think you've been on a live before, so that's really nice. I know your name anyway. Okay, then we have the card of the Phoenix. Now, the Phoenix is actually a spirit card, so it doesn't come under any of the elements because it's special. I think you guys are all up for a rebirth, and I think that's why they're asking you to keep your energy clear. So try and do the work to keep your energy clear, because I think something's coming in to move you all forward. But we'll read this. It's a beautiful card. So it's about rebirth, but it's freedom from suffering and past karma reincarnation. So the phoenix represents the transformation of our past. It doesn't mean running from it, denying it, or burning bridges with rage. The phoenix employs an advanced technique described in yoga as the burning of impurities through practice and dedication, tapas. The essence of the phoenix is with us when we realize we've been suffering too long and something must change. I know a lot of you have been going through this energy. We take a stand and decide to live consciously instead of being driven by the unconscious mind and its long lists of fears and aversions. At that very moment, the spark of the phoenix is lit, and the great bird helps us burn through our baggage. We no longer run from who we are, but what has happened to us or what we have done. The stuckness and dead weight fall away from the ashes, and a lightness and clarity emerge. As the stagnancy continues to smoulder, the phoenix lifts our spirits up and up, and we begin to recognize ourselves. Very, very interesting here. We may catch a glimmer in our eye that wasn't there before. Look closely. It's a sign of the fire of transformation is upon your wings. Okay. So this is about the first chakra. And that's sort of where you're grounded. Okay. That's what grounds you to spirit. But the ancient yogis believed that our heaviest karmas reside in the first chakra. This earthen center is also called Muladhara, or our root. The ascent of the phoenix begins here, and as the entanglement of karma is slowly burned, it rises from the ash towards the navel center. Again and again, it makes this journey from first to third chakra, purifying our essence and freeing us from the past. So that's beautiful to get after the frog. And I'm thinking what's happening here is this is what you're moving towards, this lion. So I think you're cleansing, getting ready for a rebirth, and you're going to move towards becoming the energy of this lion. If I can find the lion. There it is. Beautiful. Okay. Hello to those who've come on in the meantime. Yeah, I think we're all ready for a bit of rebirth. The frog came out first, which talks about cleansing yourself. Then we had the phoenix, and now we've got the lion. So this is about being patient, regal, and a complete master. So it's becoming your own master here. The lion is the master of the fire element and the living mascot of self-transformation. A lion personality dedicates their life to personal and spiritual growth. This dedication inspires some and intimidates others. Therefore, the lion is respected by all, but known intimately by few. Some mistake the lion as hard to access or aloof, yet those with a keener eye know better. Lions are observant, stealth, and precise in their words and actions. They do not waste energy or resources. This card reminds us that the self-mastery is available to all, no matter where our guest begins. So that is what you're rebirthing, to be the master of your own destiny. So that's really, really beautiful. Beautiful little energy there with those 3 cards. You needed all 3 of those cards, Rachel. I think we all do at the moment. I think especially, because we've had a lot of time to spend, either working on ourselves or thinking about things. I think a lot of us have been doing, the self-work we've needed to do. But so many people say to me they feel very stuck because this having so much time on their hands has made them start doing life reviews, sort of thinking, well, if this is it, I want to make sure I've got everything done before I leave the planet. I want to get in and sort of make my dreams come true now. And yesterday we had the conversation around, what does your soul want? What do you want to achieve in this lifetime? If it's achieving, having material goods, that's fine. And you're working towards that. But is it something deeper than that you need to do? Do you need to start thinking about what else you need to do to help yourself to do that extra sort of step towards your growth? What do you need to do to step into your truth? Follow your heart, do what you were born to do. And that's what I said. I mean, how many of us were born to be, an Olympic swimmer or a marathon runner, but somebody told us early in our years we weren't going to get there, so we just put it on the back burner. And who knows, you may have that Olympic or Olympian within you, or that marathon runner just waiting to come out. But if you've been told at a very young age you wouldn't achieve it, then possibly it's sitting dormant within you, waiting to be discovered. But often we get that call. And I always say, spirit pokes you so many times with a stick. If you don't learn that you need to get off your bum and do something about it, sooner or later the stick gets thrown at you. There you go. Want a cottage on a beach and sell tacos. You know what? Or tacos. Darcy, if you had a cottage on the beach selling tacos, I would be there visiting you. That to me sounds like paradise. And it's the sort of thing we see in movies, isn't it? That, the criminal, don't know how many things I've seen like that, where the criminal escapes to that beach. He's always got like the margarita and there's a bit of a guitar playing in the background, and that's where he escapes to. So I think we'd all be there with you, Darcy, by the looks of things. So I said, when we were talking the other day, I said I'd put a picture up of my tattoos. So I put that up, and a picture of myself as a ballet dancer. I don't really have many pictures of my childhood. And that was one of the ones that was actually, I think, a proof. It wasn't actually the photo. So a lot of the pictures that I have in England in those days, they'd sort of do these proofs, and they would stamp them, and then you would order the real photos. And we seem to have a lot of the proofs, so I guess we couldn't afford the real photos, but they got proof like stamped across them. So I probably only have half a dozen pictures, but yeah, that's one of them. And there's a couple of pictures of me that I really love to look back on, because I don't remember them at all. But when I look at myself in those pictures, I have really nice emotions flowing, and I like to sort of connect with that. So it's a bit of a cute one. But I'm sure when we start, hey Scott, how you going? When we start doing our internal groups, once I work out how to do this as an internal thing, as a private group, hey Moira, how you going? We can start sharing some of that stuff. So we might have a bit of fun with it and do some projects or something. So I'm looking forward to doing that, but it just has to wait until I get myself a little bit more organised with the work stuff. Anyway, I'm going to read your Wisdom of the Oracle card just to sort of tie everything together. Oh my goodness. The tribe came out, because somebody said yesterday about our little tribe on here. I'm really good, thanks, Scott. Good that it's the weekend. But somebody said yesterday about our little tribe. So I think that's really nice that that's come out. It's card 8, and I seem to be getting a lot of 8s around me this morning. And references to baseball. I think I've had about 4 or 5 references to baseball while I've been doing other things, which is a bit strange. There's obviously a meaning there. Okay, the tribe. This is about community, belonging, being seen and understood by others, like-minded connections, a sense of family and friendship, and knowing your place in the world. This card signals a new affiliation with a group. Humans are social creatures, and we need to know we are useful to our tribes, families, and communities. In a tribe, everyone has an important function and feels I matter. Membership in the group provides a sense of belonging, of kinship, and of purpose that comes from working together for the greater fulfillment of all. Perhaps you are part of a spiritual community or an artistic one. Perhaps you are a learning community where you share your love of education. Regardless of its form or focus, your community brings you joy. You will be inspired by it and want to contribute to it. Your contribution may be as small as showing up or as large as becoming its leader. No matter your position in the tribe, your presence is needed. How beautiful is that? So we're all growing together, which is really nice. Really nice. Baseball hitting a home run in my life. I'd like to think so, Scott. I really don't know. It's just a bit strange, but I keep hearing it lately, which is really different. Hey, Joanne, how are you going? We have 2 Joannes on board now, so just Joanne with an E and Joanne without the E. Yeah, I don't know, but I turned the television on and someone was referencing the movie. Do you remember the movie years ago with Madonna and I think Tom Hanks? And And then I turned on the radio and somebody on the radio was talking about a baseball. And then I listened to a reading this morning and they were talking about a baseball and it came up twice in 2 readings. So I was like, I wonder what the baseball means, if there is some sort of spiritual connection or whether I'm just, what do they call that? Reticular activating system, where, you know, when you go and buy a red car and all of a sudden everybody's driving a red car. So that sort of system. Getting to third base, first and second have to come first, don't they? Third base is the end bit, though, isn't it? The finish line. Yes, I think that we're all a tribe here, which is really nice. So anyway, I'll shuffle the cards and I'll do a little bit of a reading for you today. I won't stay on for too long. I'll unless I get talking again, which of course is so easy to encourage me, right? Not hard at all. Oh, look at that. How's that? The Lovers and 2 of Cups just jumped out at me. Who belongs to this? Who belongs to this? Could have been Rachel, could have been. I did a lot of mediumship readings yesterday. They seem to come in a little bit of a flurry, and I think it's because a lot of people are at home at the moment, so it wouldn't surprise me at all. Chris has jumped in and said they're mine. I think they might belong to all of us, but it was an 8 on the card, Scott. You're very cool. Not missing much today by the looks of that. So it looks like we might get a bit of a love reading here. So I think there's quite a lot of people would like to have some love in their life at the moment. So we'll see what we get coming up. Alrighty, so we have Temperance coming out. So the Temperance would be all that stuff we saw in the other cards, working on ourselves, working on our own balance, working on our directions, working what we want from our lives, those sort of things. Temperance can also be about divine timing, but it's mostly about balance. And bringing things back into balance. It's not quite like the traditional tarot, where she's blending fire and water, but that implies that that's what she's doing there. Okay, and we have the 9 of Pentacles, so very, very nice energy. So the 9 of Pentacles is about feeling really, who said chocolate? The 9 of Pentacles is about feeling extremely independent, standing in your truth, standing in yourself, but feeling like you've accomplished something just by sort of being able to acknowledge that you're at a really good point in your life. And we do have the Knight of, hey Jeanette, how you going? We do have the Knight of Wands coming through here. So the Knight of Wands can signify some action, probably not the baseball action and third base. But well, actually he is the Knight of Wands, so perhaps I can't ignore that. The Knight of Wands does seem to be an energy of something sort of coming in quickly and moving out again. So he does have a little bit of a reputation of being a player. So yeah, morning. So we do have the Knight of Wands coming in with some sort of offer here. Now, I have a strong feeling we do have Leo energy here with this Strength card, and the Leo energy has been coming up a lot lately. This is an offer of love here. It is an offer of love, and I feel like somebody's coming forward in a bit of a hurry here because they may be feeling like it's time. Now, if you're not looking for love, it could be someone rushing in with some sort of news or some sort of energy of like good news, some sort of energy of getting to a place that, what deck am I using? Connolly Tarot. Isn't it gorgeous? I've fallen in love with it. A very precious soul sent it to me, but I'm totally in love with it. You're waiting for the Leo. Yep. Looks like everybody's waiting on a Leo at the moment. We need a glut of Leos out there. The only thing is I've met a few Leos and haven't really sort of been attracted to them. They're a very different group of people. And not to be of any offense to Leos there, the Leos I have been meeting have been these ones. So definitely a love offer coming in, but it could also be an offer of good news too, because the page sort of sometimes talks about getting good news. And I've got a feeling here someone may be getting good news about someone that may have been through some sort of illness or operation. And that came through very strongly when I pulled that card. So I think there's a real feeling of good news, whoever's waiting on that. Let me just keep going. I keep looking over there because I don't want to miss your comments. There you go, Jody. I think we've all done the Leo along the way. Capricorn, you can have all the Leos, yet feel the same way. They are the sun. Yes, they're very sunshiny. Yes, a bit too sunshiny at times. Carla, how are you going? All right, so we have the Two of Pentacles coming out first. There's good news coming then, Rachel, if that's what you're waiting for, because I felt that very strongly when I was reading that someone's getting good news here. The Two of Pentacles talks about bringing things into balance, and we've had a lot of that this morning through the readings. So I think at the moment with the Temperance card there, the Two of Pentacles and a lot of the sort of balancing out we got in that first reading we did, I feel like a lot of you are sort of bringing your lives into balance. And sometimes when I say bringing lives into balance, I think it's really so important to have a good work-life balance. We all talk about it, but very few of us sort of do that. So we often say, you know, about having a good work balance, good work-life balance, and we try to fit everything in, but then all of a sudden you find, you know, you're tired on weekends because you've done so much during the week and you don't have time to socialize or do the things you find fun. And especially at the moment, because I've been doing some readings for people who are finding this lockdown very tough. They're really, really social creatures and they don't find their pleasure in being at home. They want to be around other people, and they're not around people at work. They're not doing their gym or their normal activities, and they've got limited access to friends. So some people are finding it very difficult at the moment. That's the sort of balance Spirit's talking about. Okay, then we have the Three of Pentacles. So good time to be working on those things about yourself that you need to sort of identify. A lot of us get messages at the moment around hidden talents and hidden gifts within ourselves. Leos, I always say to me, the Leo's the person with the red car and the stripe down the side. Like they like to do everything fast and furious, very passionate creatures. Oh, thanks, Sarah. How are you going? Only because I just felt a bit grotty, so I did put a little bit of makeup on. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. Okay, and then we have the King of Cups. So we do have someone who looks like a water sign, could be a Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio. But the King of Cups is someone who's very, very much in charge of their emotion. So they've sort of, sometimes they can be a little cold because they've sort of become a little bit too controlling of their emotion, but they certainly feel it. It's just that they've grown with it and they sort of adapted to it. So we have someone here who looks like they've walked away from something, or they're walking towards you. So someone here has brought balance into their life. They've done a bit of work on themselves. They're feeling very, very comfortable with who they are now, and they're moving towards something more emotionally fulfilling. Now, this can be you, or it could be somebody coming towards you. But as I always say, the energies flip-flop, so they can be a combination of both. But somebody here has brought balance into their life. They could have done it by walking away from something, but I also feel this person is coming towards you here. So let's see. Thanks, Scott. You're always gorgeous. Okay, Six of Pentacles. So somebody wants to put the work in now. I feel like you've got somebody coming towards you who's ready to put the work in, who's brought their life into balance. I feel they've done the self-growth they needed to do. Again, this can be you. You could be attaining the status of the King of Cups too. So you could have got your emotions to a place where you're feeling comfortable. You may have let go of your past stuff now. There's been a lot of that sort of energy lately where people have been working to release themselves from their past energy. And when I say past energy, I think sometimes people think it might be a person, but it may not be anything to do with a person. Remember that feeling of being sort of attracted to a person or attached to a person or finding it really difficult to let go is often goes back a lot further than just that relationship. So you could be, it could be that if you're feeling that pull to a person, that very often it's childhood stuff that you need to deal with that actually brings in that feeling. So a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's like a broken heart, but it's very often past trauma coming through. So if you're trying to work on the broken heart and trying to let the person go, it doesn't work so well. What you need to do is you need to go back to your childhood and work on your childhood trauma. A lot more complex than that, but that's where it comes from. You can always check on Stockholm Syndrome too, because that's how that sort of, that's the sort of feeling that it's identified with, Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, we do have the Wheel of Fortune coming in here. Someone's got great change coming in here. Someone's ready to make a big offer here, a big offer. This could be even to a point of a long-term relationship, marriage. This is something big coming in and changing. I'm having trouble talking, so whoever this is having trouble coming forward, because I'm having a bit of trouble with my throat. Okay, Ace of Wands coming in as well. Do excuse my fingernails. They're gross at the moment and they look like they're dirty, but they're not dirty. They've got stain on them. I've been staining. Okay, so we have the Hermit card coming in here. The Stockholm Syndrome and the King of Swords. Somebody's coming in with the truth. Somebody is coming forward. If you've been waiting on someone to come in from your past, they are on their way. I feel that they've done a lot of work. They've put a lot of light onto, or shed a lot of light onto either the relationship they've had with you or on their own lives to do their own healing. So they may have gone through a lot of healing stuff as well. This person is ready to talk now. I don't think they've been ready to talk before. If this is someone new to you, because it's not necessarily someone here from your past, then you've got someone who either already feels very strongly for you, but someone from your friendship group or someone that you already know is going to fess up about their feelings here. They are very strongly attracted to you here with this Ace of Wands. That's why they're coming up as the Prince, as the Knight of Wands in the beginning. So someone has very, very deep emotions here. Oh, and I flipped out the Strength card again. That's quite interesting with the Page of Cups. So for some of you, it is someone who's got either a lot of Leo in their chart or is a Leo. It's really funny because I always worry about triggering people. Because I know when I get triggered, I'm very aware of the feelings now. I never used to be. I used to go straight into the emotions and my heart would race. I'd get all hot. My emotions would be all over the place. And I'd be like, what the is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me? So I was watching something this morning, doing a little bit of sort of self-work. And all of a sudden, the person that was talking, I realized I'd been triggered by something she'd said. Now, obviously, it's not intentional. Nobody means to trigger people. It's us that's got to be aware of our triggers, okay? So I stopped for a moment and I thought, what is it that she's just said or done that's triggered me? My heart was racing. And I was trying to work out what had actually triggered me. And there was nothing. I went back and listened to it. And there was nothing within the conversation that I could pinpoint. But I know I was showing all of those sort of outcomes of that PTSD stuff. So I'm very aware. But what happened was I was watching something else a little bit later. And they were talking about, your life path and what you were destined to do on your life path. And they were saying for some people, triggering other people is what we do, like in the twin flame relationship where, you meet someone, they stir up a whole lot of stuff with you, trigger you, and then, of course, they disappear, which means you are left to deal with your own issues and problems and all the things that you've had throughout your life. And that is what the relationship is all about, is triggering those feelings so you learn to work on them, because you've got to release the stuff to go back to where you started, to become who you were meant to be. And the triggering, even though it's not very nice for people, being aware of your triggers and what that feels like, that trigger instant, what it feels like before you become emotional, before you start to panic, whatever it is for you, recognizing it at that moment, you can diffuse it. Because if you understand you're being triggered and what, as I said, that feels like for you, then you will start to understand that attachment and that pain you have when people leave you behind. So it's really interesting. So just for a second, I got triggered and I remember thinking, why have I been triggered? And it was really clear to me that I had been. I couldn't work out what had done it. So for some of you, I guess, for some of you, you may get triggered and not actually know what's triggering you. Because, okay, I don't want to get too psychological on your backsides, but when you're a child, if something happens to you, I think under the age of 7 or 8, if you have an event that happens, right, you will probably never remember the event because the memories are very sparse up until that time. You will never remember the event, but you will remember the feeling that you got with that event. So the feeling stays. So what happens is when we get older, sometimes that feeling is triggered within us for something we cannot identify because we can't remember what made us trigger that feeling in the first place. So very often the triggers come from nothing. You're sitting there thinking, why am I feeling this way? Why all of a sudden am I really anxious? I'm sick on the stomach. I feel like my heart's going to burst out of my chest. My brain's going to snap. Whatever it is for you, that feeling of all the heat rising to your face, whatever, that trigger may not have something that you can add to it. Like you can't say always, I'm feeling this way because, I saw someone get hit by a car when I was young. And therefore now every time I get a reminder of that, I get this feeling, because sometimes the feeling doesn't have to attach somewhere. So you may get the feelings without actually knowing why you're getting the feelings, but it's acknowledging and observing those feelings, which is the key to healing. Okay, so being able to stop and go, I've just been triggered. Why have I been triggered? What are the emotions I'm feeling right now? And identifying the emotions is enough to diffuse the trigger. But what we do is, because they creep up on us so quickly, and all of a sudden we find ourselves really trapped in all the emotion, we give in to the emotion. So we either start to cry, scream, get angry, whatever, because we feel all that emotion again. Now, if you've been through your life and you've had event after event after event, or relationship breakdown, or you've cycled relationship breakdowns and you've never identified that, when something happens in a relationship, sometimes it can bring back all of that cumulative stuff that you've packed up in your baggage over the years. So a lot of us will say we don't have any baggage. Well, you probably do, but you're probably not recognizing that it's baggage. So when you have those events and those triggers happen, if you can stop for a moment and go, okay, I can feel my heart beating. I can feel myself getting really stressed. I can feel the anger. I can feel the emotion. What has set it off? And you can't actually put something to it. That's okay, because usually we blame our last breakdown of relationship because it's bringing up all of that stuff for us. But identifying it, observing what emotions have come up, learning to just do a few deep breaths and try and get into your more relaxed body and just clear the adrenaline away, then you'll be able to cope with that feeling each time. But the first point is recognizing, observing it, and then breaking it down into smaller parts by stopping and just thinking about it. Now, sometimes you'll actually have a trigger. It might be someone who's reminded you of someone. It could be someone who just looks like someone. It could be that someone says something that sort of triggers something from your past. So it can sometimes have a reason, but a lot of the time it's just buried emotion that we don't realize we've still got stuck inside us. And a lot of it is abandonment. And I heard someone say to me the other day, well, I was never abandoned. And I think that what people think is abandonment is if your parent goes away and leaves you altogether. And I'm not discounting that doesn't happen, because I know to people it's happened too. But abandonment can come from just a lack of attachment to a parent figure. So if you have a parent who is inconsistent with the care, they could have loved you a lot, but maybe they were inconsistent. Maybe sometimes they let you cry too much. Sometimes they left you alone. Sometimes they might have left you with other people because they had to work. There may be no actual mean, nasty reason for it, but it might be that you've grown, you didn't attach to a parent figure like you should have done. And that can make a difference too. So you have attachment issues, and that really adds to your fear of being abandoned then. So if you want to look into it a bit more, I think it's Bandler who came up with the theories in the first place. I think there were 3 theories of attachment to start off with, but they've been sort of broken down a little bit more. And some of them come up with disorganized and organized attachments as well. So anxious, avoidant, healthy, I can't remember what they're all called now, but you can look into that. Yeah, so for some people, yes, it was definitely about some of the things that your parents may have done to you as a child. As I said, you know, for some of us, our parents didn't mean to do it. And for others of us, our parents probably just did it without actually knowing the damage they were doing. But whether it was, you know, implied abuse, whatever it was, it just still develops those feelings within you. So you become one of those people, anxious or avoidant. And that's why I always say to you that the people we call players, or the people that tend to sort of rush in and out of our lives and, you know, don't stick to relationships, they've probably been through much the same. It's just theirs has manifested in a very different way to what yours might have done. But they're all fear of attachment. See, this is it, Scott. It is getting triggered when your relationship is ended by another person, definitely. But you've got to remember, it's not just that relationship you're experiencing. You're experiencing probably all of the relationships you've had. You're probably experiencing a lot of your childhood trauma. It all comes in at once. And that's the whole idea of going through those triggers to recognize why you feel that way. And if you start to observe and you start to acknowledge, those triggers will have less and less control over you as you move forward. And as I said, I always worry about triggering people, but I guess at the end of the day, if we don't get triggered, we don't know we've got a problem. We're going to move into the next relationship and we're going to have a bigger hit next time because we haven't dealt with the ones we've had before. It becomes a cumulative thing. Hey, Moonstone, how you going? Yeah, I think yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? So I'm looking, yeah, see, some people are talking about their abuse as a child. Sometimes, as I said, it can be, you know, a real abuse that you can identify. Sometimes it's abuse that's sort of inadvertent. Somebody might not realize they're doing it. Because I was thinking, and I think I've said this before on here, you know, parents sometimes will believe that a child should just scream for hours, and they just think that that's okay. They can just let them scream for hours and they're fine. Well, we know now that screaming for a long time is not good for a child, but we can let them self-soothe. So I think the general thing is you leave them for 2 or 3 minutes and you go in and check, then you come away, then you leave them for another couple of minutes, you go back and check again. And then the child knows, when I cry, my mother comes. So I don't have to worry because I'm not alone in this world, because when I cry really loudly, my mum comes in, she checks my nappy, she gives me a little bit of a cuddle and she puts me back down again. So what happens in the end, the child learns to do that by themselves, knowing that mum will come in if they need them, but it's self-soothing. So that's how you sort of, in a healthy way, get a child to self-soothe. But what used to happen was, oh, good night, Rachel. It was lovely to catch you too. Thank you for coming in. But for some parents, they used to have this belief that you just let a child scream themselves to sleep. And I remember a couple of my friends doing it and feeling so distressed by it, because obviously the child was really distressed. You don't have to talk to the child. You don't have to do anything. You just walk in the room, check that everything's okay, give them a little bit of a hug and put them back to bed again. And you don't speak to them. but they know you're there. So that forms a healthy attachment with the child. So if you've got a parent who doesn't do that, the other thing is inconsistent parenting. So you might have a parent who maybe drinks a lot of alcohol, so they can't always respond to you because maybe they're under the influence sometimes, or they take drugs. So sometimes they come and see to you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're really uncomfortable in your dirty nappy for hours because nobody's come in and checked your nappy for you. So all of those things add to, is my mum going to come in and look after me, or am I going to scream for nothing? So eventually what happens, it starts to eat into the development of trust of a child. So then if you grow up in a home where you've got distant parents, or parents who don't show you love, parents who don't attend to your needs or dismiss your needs, don't listen to you, all of those things create attachment problems. But they also can do it the other way around too, where if you get too much attention, and we've talked about that before because I remember Gigi talking about it, sometimes you can have parents who are really great and they can give you everything and they can expect a lot from you in return, but they're very caring and loving parents, but they don't allow you to fail or fall short or not get something right, in which case that becomes a problem too. So, a lot of us grew up with a very unstable sense of self from our childhood. So we take that with us into our adulthood, and we believe that that's what love looks like because that's the way our parents loved us. So if you had a parent who was inconsistent, who didn't love you all the time, who perhaps showed you love sometimes and not other times, perhaps you had we sometimes we have parents who smack us a lot, hit us a lot, and I think that you grow up thinking that's what love looks like. And I know we've talked about it before because I know I can see some of the people commenting, and I know we've spoken about it before, but it's obviously something we need to talk about as much as we can. There's nothing wrong with not having an attachment to your parents, Sarah. We grow up thinking that we have to love our parents because we are taught by society that a parent loves their child. It's a misconception. Some parents are unable to love. They are unable to show their children love. They might pretend to the community, to family members and people around them, look at me, I'm being a fantastic parent, but they still don't really know how to love their children. So when people say it's a natural thing for a mother to love her child, it is so not. It is not. Some people don't have the ability to love their children. I'm sorry. I know that that's a tough thing to hear sometimes. And I've said it to people who've told me I'm absolutely crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. Some parents do not have the capacity to love their children. Now, that doesn't mean that anything bad. It might mean that their own parents taught them to love that way, and then they married someone who was taught to love that way. So we get this endless cycle of people not loving people properly. So we grow up thinking that's what love looks like. Love looks like someone slapping me around, hurting me, using my children as tools in our relationship. All of those things become normal to us because we've seen other people do it. So we then look for our relationship in the same vein. So we often marry, and that's why I laugh about all the time, because Freud had that right. We often marry our parents because of that. I'm just going to read some of the comments. Very often narcissistic parents will target one child as the golden child and one child as a scapegoat. If you want to look into that more, daughters of narcissistic mothers, DONMs, a woman has a website. Her name is Danu Morrigan. If you think your mother may have been a narcissist, very good to read up on that and have a look at that. But if a parent's a narcissist, remember, you're never going to be loved by them. You're only just an extension of them. So as long as you're serving them, that is all that matters to them. And if there is one child that they see as being extra special, more like them, or going to fulfill the life they couldn't fulfill, they will focus all their attention on that one child. So one child becomes like they call them the golden child, and then there'll be another child in the family that will always be at the scorn of their parents, and they end up being scapegoats. Um, I don't know, Moira. I can't answer that question. But I do know a lot of nuclear families where the child is very, very spoiled. Um, yeah. The thing is, I mean, we just don't. Eh, she loved you as well as she could. Well, if you believe that, Sarah, I think that's really important. Um, and if you can build some sort of relationship with your mother, that's fantastic. But some people will never be able to do that, and a lot of people end up not having anything to do with their families because of that relationship. It can be a very cruel and a lifelong lesson, I can tell you now. Yeah, Tamara's saying her mum was a narcissist. Uh, should get a license to become parents. Probably is very, very true. Some people can heal the relationships with their mother, but if you want your mother to love you in the way you believe a mother should love you, that might never going to be happen. But if you can decide that to have some sort of friendship or some sort of relationship which is mutually beneficial for both of you, then that can heal the wound a little, that's for sure. Yeah, see, Gigi's done the same too. Hamlet. Haley. That's too funny, Joanne. Yeah, so you do. You end up marrying people who are the same, and it sort of took a lot of years to work that out. You know that that's what you do. You tend to sort of because that's what love looks like to you. So you tend to seek out people. Well, you don't seek out. You tend to sort of attract people to you who are, or they seek you out. And they are very often a very similar personality, which becomes a bit sort of creepy, I guess, in a way. But sort of once you recognize it, it really helps you to have a healthier relationship with yourself, which is still the most important thing. So until you're able to have a healthy relationship with yourself, it's going to be very difficult to form a healthy relationship with someone else. Hi, Gillian, you're late again. Take a late note. Detention. Yes, I mean, some of the golden children are beautiful too. Some of them are not. Going to say to you, some of them are not, but some of the golden children will know that they're the golden child and they don't like it one little bit. And then other children in the family can become quite disconnected and quite jealous because of that one child who's always getting everything from the parent. But you see, the parent sees, we talked about Raymond, because Raymond, remember, was the golden child in the show. And his brother Robert was sort of the one that was always, trying so hard to win his parents' affection, but Raymond always got it always. So we did talk about that before. I agree with you, Moira. I know with like the Aboriginal community here in Australia, the parents, and I think the Maori people do too in New Zealand, they don't just sort of rely on the parents solely and wholly. They have a lot of other parents who are sort of mother figures as well. So there's sort of a love from a lot of different people. But if you're English, there was a very different relationship with families in England, and you kept yourself very distant from other family members. Everything was very private. You never talked about anybody that died. You never talked about anybody in the past. You never talked about your history. Very old English way of doing it. And if you were raised that way, then you never really saw a lot of your family around. Oh, Joanne. Yeah, I can relate to you, Joanne. I grew up thinking I didn't want to do things wrong either, and do them very different, Gillian. um, yeah, mums are people too. I don't know about that one either. I'll just sit back on that one and let that one go. I don't think they're human, some of them, but anyway. Jane, how are you going? I was early today. Well done. Another late person. You can join detention with Gillian because she was late as well. Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's a very, very interesting subject, and one that I'm quite happy to talk about as many times as people want to talk about it. But um, it takes a lot to recognize all of those things that may have sort of contributed to you perhaps growing up not living to your full potential, let's say that. So if you grew up in a family that was a little bit unstable, you could have become very you could have tapered your personality to suit your environment. So you may have become very quiet, very passive. You may not have had the ups and downs that other people seem to have because you tried to keep your temperament very, very stable. So you didn't sort of tip the apple cart, and you constantly walk around on eggshells. So you become an anxious child, so you don't stir anything up. You keep your personality very sort of down the middle. You never display anything out there. You just try and keep the peace all the time. You find that you're always doing things and being nice to people because that way you didn't tip the apple cart, and you didn't create any sort of conflict. So you grow up thinking conflict's a really bad thing. So you avoid it as much as you can. And you keep everything about yourself secret because you're always worried that if you behave in a certain way and you upset a narcissistic parent who may have filthy narcissistic rage, then you're going to bear that regardless of who stirred it up, because that person will always go after the scapegoat child. So you are constantly being targeted. So what happens is you don't grow up being yourself. That's how masks are formed, because you grow up being someone you think is more attractive and more lovable. So you try to make yourself a more lovable person by hiding away everything about yourself so the world doesn't see it. So that's why a lot of people have so many issues with it. And you hold your anger in, you hold your emotions in, you don't allow anybody to see your vulnerability because you need to stay strong because you're constantly walking on eggshells so you can avoid the conflict. No, Moonstone, you made it in the door just before we put detention on. So you do pay attention, Gigi. It's really good. If you can start to pay attention. Hey, Lauren, how you going? If you can start to pay attention to your triggers or what triggers you, if you can't, paying attention to the emotions. So as I said, what you've got to do is you've got to first off go, okay, I'm being triggered here. My heart's racing. I feel really uncomfortable, whatever it is for you. You stop for a moment, you go, and instead of saying, why am I being triggered? Ask yourself, what are you feeling first? Go into your feelings, calm it all down, and then go back and have a look at what might have triggered you. But as I said to you, sometimes the triggers are triggered by nothing because you don't recognize what the cause was for the trigger in the first place. Absolutely, Vicky. The siblings' perception of the so-called golden child, not you. But I can tell you what happens in a family is if you're the scapegoated child, you'll be scapegoated by all of your family, not just the parent, which becomes a real issue and problem because it's like you have a whole family ganging up on you, not just one person. So that means you've got to be a different person around everybody in your family to avoid that conflict. So you're constantly living on the edge of your nerves. Yeah, see, there you go. Sarah said the same thing. I still think that you do it like you get so used to doing it, you will still do it even at work or around people that maybe make you a bit nervous because you don't want to upset them. It just seems to be a thing you do until your body just collapses under the constant stress of trying to keep everybody happy. So you do it, you people please with your friends, you people please with your relatives, you people please with the people at work because you've grown so accustomed to making sure people don't get upset with you, don't get angry with you, and don't create those things within you. So this is what happens years later. You get these triggers and you've got nothing to attach them to because you don't really know what the problem was in the first place, what triggers you. And I've seen it happen to people. It can be so distressing for people, not understanding why they have these floods of emotion for the most simple thing. And I always say it's like sometimes um, that straw that broke the camel's back. That's where it comes from, because it's sort of like you're sitting like a little tightly woven elastic band, and then something happens and you just snap. And that's what we've talked about before too, because then when you snap, everybody's, what's wrong with you? What's your problem? Because they've been so used to you accommodating them for so long. And it happens in relationships too. You go through that beautiful honeymoon stage and you're doing all the right things and running around after the person, making sure they're happy, because obviously their happiness is far more important than yours is, because that's how you grew up. So you're constantly injecting everything into the other person. And then one day you wake up and think, hang on a moment, this isn't right. And then you start to get the resentment and anger that you've sat underneath for many years, because this person is not appreciating or respecting you the way they should for what you've put in, when in reality you have created your mother or your father all over again. So it's really interesting. Oh God, I wasn't spoiled. That would be the most hideous thing anybody could ever say to me, that I was spoiled as the oldest child. No, definitely not. No, I don't think so either. And I've often thought, people often say that with an only child too. And I've met some people who've been only children who've been really well balanced, very kind, loving, caring people, even as the first child. It's definitely got to do with the parents. The only thing the first child seems to really be in terms of being the eldest child is you take the responsibility, a lot more responsibility on board, because you are the eldest, and your parents will make you responsible for the children. So for some of those parents we're talking about, you end up parenting your own parents because of the fact that you are landed with all that responsibility. Yeah, I still sometimes, Melissa, sometimes I think, when things happen, I find to myself saying, oh, don't worry about it. And then I think, no, don't say that. That is just not the right thing to say. So, you've just got to sometimes say, yeah, actually, that really hurt my feelings. What you just did hurt. Okay. Well, give me an apology for that. And I'll be fine. But just recognize or acknowledge that you hurt me in some way, shape, or form. But no, I don't. I try not to do that anymore. But it is a bit of a comeback line when somebody does something or says something offensive, because I've been so used to it over many years. Sometimes it's automatic for me to say, oh, don't worry about it. And we were talking about that before, because I think somebody was talking about, oh, Sarah's going. See you, Sarah. Scott, you're too funny. And I think that sometimes we do dismiss things by thinking we're doing the right thing by telling people not to worry about it. And it's the same as the whole narcissistic thing, when they say something really nasty and you start to get upset and they go, what's wrong with you? I was only joking. So yeah, so it's sort of all those dynamics that you start to realize are part of who you create with yourself from your upbringing. But anyway, I better get off. It's nearly been an hour. I was going to have just a short visit today, so we got into a lot of heavy talk again. So before I go, oh, Jane, I can't believe that at all. I cannot believe that one little bit. You see, people say things all the time about their childhood. I got very rebellious in my teens, but I think I rebelled because I'd been held under the thumb for so long. My daughter's children, my daughter's she's so fabulous with her kids. So they really are different. They really are. She allows them to be who they are. I mean, obviously she still has boundaries in place, but they're very noisy children. And the woman next door stuck her head over the fence one day and started screaming at the children. And when Sarah came out, she said to Sarah, your children are being too noisy. They need a good smack. We wouldn't allow them to be that noisy in our place. They'd get a smack for yelling that loudly. I was like, hang on a moment. Poor Sarah. She rang me up so devastated. And I was like, it's normal for children to be noisy. Her children, because there's 4 of them, they are very noisy. but that's how children are. You can't smack children for being normal. So I think that sometimes with our parents, we were probably just being very, very normal kids, but we got punished for being normal because we didn't fit in with their schema of what we should have been. So, the fact that I rebelled, when I look back, probably was a really small thing. I didn't do anything bad, but yeah, I don't know. So sometimes I don't know if children are really naughty or bad. I think I believe now, after working with homeless kids and after working with small children, that a lot of children push back against the system in their early teens because of the stuff that happened to them when they were very young. Just the way it is. Oh, are you? I went past compassion with my mum. Sorry. I don't have any compassion at all anymore. Not for her at all. Okay. Nothing wrong with noisy kids, Lauren. Let your children express themselves. As long as you have good boundaries in place, kids can be who they're going to be. Don't knock their individuality out of them. It's awful. Oh, that would have been a hard one, Angelica. Yeah, I would imagine that would have been a very difficult upbringing. Yeah, yeah, you sound like you've had a really tough time. So I was gonna say, no, I don't have very much. I don't have anything to do with my family. I have a little bit to do with my extended family, like aunts, cousins, those sort of things. But I had to cut contact with my family completely. It's been a couple of years now. Only one I have contact with is one brother who I was very, very close to before, but I won't talk to him if I know he's going to talk to the rest of the family about me. So they all try checking up on me all the time, making up false profiles to keep an eye on me and all those sort of things. So I just I'm not even interested. I'm not hurt. I'm not worried. Sometimes people go, "Oh, you poor thing." I'm like, don't think it's a poor thing. I was a poor thing before I walked away. That was a poor thing what I grew up as. Yeah, Angelica, it's probably stirred up a lot of stuff for you here, talking about some of this stuff. I know we've sort of broached it a few times on here, and I think I know for some people it's really difficult acknowledging their family stuff. But in a way, it's good to know other people have been through the same things. And I think that's the most wonderful thing about this group is every time someone raises something within this group, someone else comes forward and says, this is what happened to me. This is the sort of thing I'm going through. So the one thing that's beautiful about having a group like this is the support you get from each other helps you to realize that some of the stuff we go through, as much as it's not nice, seems to be fairly normal. We grow up thinking we live in these families that are so functional and so full of love. And we want to see, like, I remember going to other people's house. I had a few friends who were only children. And I remember going to their places as a child. And I mean, it was wonderful. I got to have ice cream once, and I got to have a spider, a soda spider, whatever you call them in soda, ice cream soda things. They call them spiders. And I remember going to places that I'd never gone to before with these people, and just having those things in my life was just such a pleasure for me. So I stayed friends with people where I loved being in their home. One particular friend, her parents were much older parents, and they loved her so much. She had an older sibling, and they'd had her late in life, and they loved her so much. And I loved being at their house because it was so calm and so beautiful, and I just loved being around them, and they treated me so well. And when I look back, I think that's probably how parents should be treating their children. So I loved going over to her place, and they were just so wonderful to me. They really were. So I just think that's beautiful, Angelica. I love that. It happens in a lot of families. A lot of families are dysfunctional, but we grow up thinking that everybody else's family is beautiful and that we are, somehow, damaged, or there's something wrong with us. But I don't think so. I think a lot of families are dysfunctional. But look what we watch on television. I mean, as much as I love my movies and I love television, but I mean, we watch these shows where these families just have this beautiful lifestyle, and women never put on weight, and women always have these beautiful, everything beautiful about themselves, and our expectations are, so much higher than they should be. So it's really interesting. So I love coming on and talking here because it somehow reminds me that I'm just human too. We've all been through our set of stuff. It's all made us what we are. I'm still trying to unravel. I'm still trying to unwind it. So even at the age I am, I'm still working on trying to understand my reactions, my triggers. So it becomes a very long process. So I figure talking about it on here, if we have younger people who are already going through some of this stuff, then I get the opportunity to be able to say, this is what you can do to help yourself now so you don't get as old as I did before I started to understand some of this stuff. And that is my place. It's my I guess my promise to people that if I can help them through things they're going through at a much younger age so they can improve their lives by having a greater understanding of what's happening to other people, then we're doing a very, very good job of unraveling for other people or helping them unravel for themselves, which I think is really important. Gillian, if one day I'll get on here and I'll tell you my whole story. I know that there's been many times when a couple of us have talked about our family without getting into too much, and people have said to me, you could sell that to a magazine. But it really doesn't worry me to talk about it so much. But I can put it in a book, and I will put it in a book. But my story is not anything like anyone would believe. So it's sort of, when I've told it before, people have said to me, it just sounds like you've just made a movie, you've just created a movie script. So it's been interesting. You know what, Lauren, can I say to you, it doesn't matter which person is saying to me, about what I give to them. I say to you time and time again, that you all help me too. So it's reciprocal. And I just saw Moonstone write about unraveling ever stops. I don't think it does either. But certainly if you can start younger, I think that, I grew up really quite, I'm a smart girl. I have a high level of intelligence, but I never really worked all these workings out until I got married for the third time and came out of a marriage realizing that I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be that person anymore because I just kept marrying the same person with a different face, with a different addiction, with a different way of doing things, but all of them abusive in their own way. And it wasn't until then, so we're talking now probably 10 years ago now, after 14 years in that marriage, that I started everything started falling apart for me. During that marriage, there were things that happened to me that started me on a road of healing. But I figure now, if I can talk about that, at least other people can understand it. And I do. Some people would talk to me about their relationships, and then I'll highlight the fact that they've probably had some trauma in their childhood. And very often then they can go back and find what that trauma was and start working on their own stuff. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? I can't be your parent, but I can certainly be your guide and your mentor if you need help with that or you need to understand it more. And that's what I love to do. I love to say to people, okay, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not damaged in any way, shape, or form. You are still the most beautiful person you could be, but you could be a lot more happy within yourself if you start to understand why some of these things might have happened to you. And the doors I've opened for people have been absolutely amazing. That is not ego speaking here. It's actually giving people the tools to work with what they need to have the best possible lives they can. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking seeing people not really understanding why they don't cope with things, or why they're cycling in a relationships, and meeting really cruel people and not really understanding. And when you say to them, this is what you need to do, you need to go back and have a look at your life for these reasons, people don't always understand that's why. So if you can give people that little bit of knowledge, wow, they just really run with it. And I don't know. I just believe that's what I'm here for. I strongly believe that's what I'm here for. So, yeah, and I do too, Angelica. It's a beautiful group, and that's what I said. For everybody who comes on here, I have messages that come through afterwards to say how much they appreciate having other people around and having that connectivity, I guess, to what other people have been through, and how it just makes you feel so very, very normal to know that other people have been through the same thing and people have survived. And that whole survival thing, the suffering, when you've gone through so much suffering, and then someone says to you, here's the opportunity to heal your suffering, that it is just the greatest gift you can give to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. If somebody can offer you that little door to open, or that little opportunity to understand what goes on, you know what? And I agree with you, Lauren. I think that I think as a parent, we do. I mean, even though I was very different as a parent, I believe I was very different. I was very loving, and very caring. I still had a father of the children who was a narcissist. So I've seen it happen in other people, where you can be the most loving and kindest person to your children, but if you've still got a narcissist around you, you're still experiencing some of that stuff that you experienced at home. The issue and problem is, if you've got two narcissistic parents, there's no escaping from that. There's no you never really understand how to love yourself from the very beginning, because you're always told you're imperfect. So when you grow up and you marry someone that's like one of those parents, then you just really cycle it round again. So your children, regardless, they still have some of that damage to them too, and they still have to go and fix it themselves. So it's really, really difficult. But being a single parent, and I was a single parent for quite a long time, I feel was very tough, but I still feel that I managed that better than being in an abusive relationship. That's for sure. Narcissists don't have any insight or remorse, Gillian. I'm sorry, they just don't have any. They just see it as your problem. It was my problem, not theirs. It was my problem. So they just never see it that way at all. But I will go into the whole story one day and tell you my story, so you can understand sometimes where I'm coming from. We're not really, Joanne. We're born perfect. We are all born perfect. We're perfect little babies when we're born, but we grow up with a sense of self that is given to us through our ego. And that ego, if it's healthy ego, the ego is a preventative thing that helps you stay safe. But if you're growing up with an ego that's out of shape, or distorted by things around you too much, then that ego becomes a mask you wear, and you don't stay pure and true to the person you were born as. So yeah, we are all imperfect as adults, but as children, we're born perfect. Everything is ingrained on us: our schools, our governments, our families, our extended families. I agree with you, Gigi. I think I was much better as a single parent than what I was as a parent with with the children's father. He's dead now. He died died a year ago. And I guess to the point of the ego and being born perfect, I think that we do struggle to be the most perfect version of ourselves as adults. So we do strive for some perfection. But isn't everybody perfect and imperfect in their own way? Because I think that even if you think you're imperfect, there are certain things about you that I would see as perfect. And my idea of perfection is that you're true to who you are, and you stay true to who you are. You don't bend and break because somebody else puts you in that position. So if you're being true to who you are, then to me, you're being perfect anyway. Perfect, imperfectly perfect, or perfectly imperfect, whichever way. Men have very, very difficult, generally, no sexism here. Generally, men will get pretty much into a relationship straight away after leaving. I think it's because of the physical aspect. They need someone perhaps to look after them, but I think it's very much men find love through physical contact, whereas a woman tends to want other things. So, yeah, I know. And I agree with everybody saying beautiful things here, and I'm thinking I should be writing a book with all the things you say. Men do tend to sort of jump into another relationship to ease the pain. It means they can deny it. They can deny anything. They don't have to work on it. But women do it too. It's just that majority of women take the blame. So we go away thinking it's our fault. We've done something horrible. So we don't want to be in another relationship straight away because we don't want to experience any more pain. So we sort of stay with ourselves. Men tend to sort of see sex as a release for that. So it tends to be that way. Although I've seen women do it and I've seen men do the opposite. So, but generally it seems to be the way of society. Perfection is a very vague term. It's very subjective, isn't it? I might see you as perfect. Maybe you don't see yourself as perfect. And no, babies are not, that's a religious thing that babies are born in sin. What a horrible thing. These perfect little children being born in the world that have no imprint, they're clean slate. How can they be sinful? Oh, that's beautiful, Joanne. I bet you were. It's beautiful, isn't it, when your children make you proud? It's just beautiful. I love that. Uniquely perfect, imperfectly perfect. We're all of the things. Do you like hugs and comfort, Scott? Depends on who hugs and what sort of comfort you're talking about. Intimacy is a different thing for different people. So if someone tries to hug me and I don't know them very well, that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not quite comfortable with hugging. I'm not a hugger if I don't know people. Now, if some of you guys came in, I could probably hug you because I know enough about you. But when people come at me for a hug and I don't know them from Adam, that personal space. Personal space. But once I'm in a relationship and I'm very comfortable, I'm extremely affectionate once I'm comfortable, and I'm very, very affectionate and very close to all my children. But I came from a family where nobody told each other they loved each other, and the hugs we gave to each other were like man hugs. I call them man hugs. You know, when you sort of stand apart and you just do one of these on the back. That was my family's hugging. So I was never used to that. And when I had children, I thought it was great because I could pick them up and squeeze them and kiss their necks. And I still do it with my grandchildren. They're used to me now. So you get weirded too, Lauren. I know. I'm like, don't come for hugs. I'm like, push like, no, not yet. I have to get to know you before I can hug you. But once I like my friends and the people I'm really close to, they get the biggest hugs in the world because I feel really, really comfortable with them. That's beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a sort of a little bit of a balance, isn't it, Scott? Sort of getting to that point with someone where you feel really, really comfortable enough that, hugging and kissing becomes a natural part of the relationship. But yeah, when you said you like to hug and well, and I was like, not straight away. There's nothing odd about me. I love it, but I just oh, really, Tamara? Oh, yeah, it's a bit sad, isn't it? It is a bit sad. Yeah, I love hugs. Once again, I've got a couple of friends who are the best huggers. I always say to them, I'm due for a Jenny hug or I'm due for a hug from you, so I'll be out shortly. Because I love hugging some people. I do. I love it. But my grandchildren, as I said, some of them are getting a bit old for hugs. They don't, you sort of get a hug and that's it. I can't sort of splash them with kisses on the neck anymore and things like that. But they got a lot of that when they were little. Yeah, my hugs are probably like that too. I probably have bear hugs. But I love the hugs. Anyway, I better go. I've gone 20 minutes over an hour. I will go. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for the chat. It's been wonderful today. And I'm sure that everybody's got something out of it. If you feel that you've been triggered by anything, remember to stop for a moment, do a little bit of deep breathing. If you can do a meditation, get on a meditation and get your body back into equilibrium again. And just keep an eye out so that when you are triggered in future, you can observe what emotions come out, how you work with them, and also perhaps understand why you've been triggered. Have a wonderful day and we'll talk tomorrow. Mwah!